Assalamu alaikum everyone and welcome to my channel Scour Your Knowledge. In our previous lecture we have studied the supply function and all the factors, maximum factors that affect the supply function along with the price factor. Today we will drive the supply curve with the help of that supply function. The supply function is provided over here at the top of the board, and we would derive the supply curve with the help of this supply function. Here we are plotting the price on the vertical axis and quantity supplied of the unit of the product X on the horizontal axis. So let's suppose at $2 the quantity supplied by the suppliers. We are considering the market supply over here. We are not talking about the individual suppliers, so we talk about the suppliers, the overall suppliers in the market. So the suppliers are willing to supply 4 units of the product. But due to some factor, if the price of the product is raised to $4, now the suppliers are willing to supply 6 units of the product. So this kind of a relationship, which goes in a sloping way upward, is the direct relationship. It means that price of the X is directly proportional to quantity. Whenever there would be a change in the price, it would always affect the quantity supplied of the product X by the suppliers. So more the price increase, the more would be suppliers interested in supplying the product. Now, as earlier we have studied in our demand function as well, that price and quantity supplied, when we talk about the relationship between the price and the quantity supplied, we always keep all the other factors constant. Here, as we have Tx, which represents the state of technology, the Pi represents the inputs of production's prices, Pa and Pb are basically the prices of goods which are related in production of the good X. Now EXP represents the producer expectations about future prices, and NP is the number of producers that enter or exit the market. Now the price and the quantity supplied always makes a relationship which moves along the curve. Now this is called the supply curve. Whenever there would be a price change, either the price increase or the price decrease, the quantity supplied changes would always be upward or downward respectively, and there would be a movement along the curve. It would be an upward movement or a downward movement, but it won't cause, the price being the only factor is not going to cause a shift in the curve. There are other factors which are non-price factors which are always involved in the which act as the price shifters, and which always make the curve to shift outside or inside. I hope so far you are clear about the supply curve derivation, how we derive the supply curve, and now we would see how we are going to see the supply curve shift due to these factors. A supply curve generally slopes upward which indicates a positive or a direct relationship between the price of the product and the quantity producers are willing to supply. A higher price typically gives producers an incentive to increase the quantity supplied of a particular product, because higher product or the higher production is more profitable to them. Here we have taken the linear supply function. The linear supply function means that all the terms are either added or subtracted and no terms have exponents other than 1. When we say that changes in the price, like it was P1 and it has become now P2. Previously the suppliers were willing to supply Q1 and now Q2. So this movement along the curve is called change in quantity supplied. Because some factors have caused the prices of the product to increase, the suppliers respond by increasing the quantity supplied. This supply response is by the existing suppliers, since the number of suppliers held constant when defining any given supply curve. So the number of individuals or the suppliers or the market players which were present at this point in time, now at this price, the same number of suppliers are willing to produce this much quantity, which means the number of suppliers are not being changed. Because if we change the number of suppliers or the number of producers, which means that there would be shift in the supply, because no other factor is involved whenever we make a supply curve other than the price factor. No other non-price factor is involved whenever we make a change in quantity supplied, and it would end up in the supply curve. So whenever there would be change in supply or the shift in supply, that would be because of the factors that are involved. Here, for the sake of understanding, I've made the movement along the curve as the delta in QS, which means the change in the quantity supplied, and I've erased all of the other things so that it is more visible to you now. Now let's suppose if for any reason or because of any other factors that we have held constant have not changed. Now there would be a shift in the supply. Let's suppose that the supply curve is now shifted from S1 to S2. Now the main point is, at this point in time, the suppliers are selling the product at $2. Now due to the supply shift in the supply, because of the other factors, we would study that the other factors, how they respond, either they respond directly or positively or negatively. Further, let's suppose there was one factor which we could say that technology is now being improved. So due to the improved technology, the suppliers are now willing to sell the product at the same price, but now they want to sell not 4 units of the product, now they want to sell 6 units of the product, because due to the improvement in the technology, now the cost of production is being decreased, and which makes it more viable for them to produce more of the product, and more production would produce more of the profitability. So now they, at the same price, now they are producing or supplying 6 units of the product. And in the same way, at 4 units, if the price increased to 4, now they would be willing to supply, let's suppose, 8 units. So this outward movement due to the change in technology is the shift in supply curve, which is also called change in supply. We need to study very thoroughly, and we need to understand very thoroughly the difference between the change in quantity supplied and change in supply. Change in quantity supplied means the movement along the curve which was caused due to the price change, and price change made the suppliers to supply the change in the quantity supplied. But when there comes in when there comes in the other factors also, or when we involve other factors also, so at that point in time, now the suppliers want to produce or to supply more at the same price. There is no price change, but now they are willing to supply more. So there would be entire shift in supply curve. Or if there is any kind of a change which is not feasible or which is not viable for them, so there would be an inward shift, which means now they would be willing to supply less of the product, which would again be the same thing, that is the shift in the supply curve. Either it is outward or it is inward. Whenever it is outward shift in the supply curve, which means that they want to supply or produce more, and when there is an inward shift, that means that they want to supply less of the product, and that shift in the supply curve is called change in supply, not change in the quantity supplied. So movement along the curve is the change in quantity supplied, and shift in the supply curve is the change in supply. So the entire supply curve is now being moved outside. Now we would see the effects of the other factors also, and how they are going to affect or shift the supply curve either outwards or inwards. Now if you have seen the previous video of mine regarding the demand function, so this distinction between the change in quantity supplied and a change in supply is analogous to the distinction between the quantity between the change in quantity demanded and a change in demand. We have observed the same thing, and the rules and the process was exactly the same, but that was the downward sloping thing, because the price and the quantity demanded had the inverse relationship. Now let's suppose if there is the price of the input. Assume that the price of the input is now increased. Now, due to this price of the input increase, now at the same price, consumer would be willing to produce, let's suppose, 2 units of the product. Like the product is still at the same price right now. It is on $2, but now the consumers are willing to the producers are willing to supply the 2 units at this price, and now there would be an inward shift, which is again shift in the supply curve. At $2 they want to supply 2 units. At $4 now they want to supply $4 units, which previously they wanted to supply at the original price, which previously, without any shift or without any changes, previously they were willing to supply 6 units at the $4 price. Now they are willing to supply 4 units at the $4 price. So this is the inward shift due to the input increase in the input prices. Now one other thing, the effect of a change in the price of a related good on the supply of a given good depends on whether the related good is a substitute or a complement in production. An increase in the price of a substitute good, let's suppose PA is my substitute good. So an increase in the price of a substitute good causes the supply curve for the given good to shift to the left. A decrease in the price of a substitute good causes the increase in the supply of the given good. The opposite set of relationship holds for goods that are complements in production. If the price of the complementary good increases, the supply of the given good increases. Now, the producer expectation. For the producer expectations, if the producer expects of the lower prices, it will cause the supply curves of a good to shift to the right. The supply increases in anticipation of lower prices in the future. The opposite holds if producers expect prices to increase. There would be a smaller current supply than without those expectations. Now, finally, increase in the number of producers. So far we have studied these much factors, so we would consider these factors and we would talk about them to keep the things simple as far now. Now, increase in the number of producers results in a right-ward shift, because more the number of producers, more the producers will be willing to supply. While a decrease results in a leftward shift of the supply curve. I hope it has become clear to you now that how we derive a supply curve and how we plot the values on the supply curve, and also that it has the direct relationship, the price and the quantity supplied has a direct relationship. It means that the slope would be it would be a upward sloping curve, and the movement along the curve is going to be whenever there would be a price change, and it would change the quantity supplied, and whenever there would be a change in the factors, there would be a shift in the supply curve, either outwards or inwards. So I hope it has given you a little bit of knowledge regarding the supply curve. I hope you just stay tuned with us for our next video as well, because things are going to get more advanced and more complicated in the upcoming lectures. So these are basically the basic things and basic terminologies that you need to be very clear or very specific or very precise of when we talk about when we study the economics. So the more clearer your concepts are, the more it would be easier for you to carry on the concepts and to carry on the things in the advanced levels. Thank you so much for watching my video, and I need a lot of your support, and if you guys want me to make more of such videos, please stay tuned and do let me know in the comments below, and please subscribe to my channel. It's a very humble request from my side to you guys out there, and please also press the bell icon so that whenever I make any further videos, you get notified at once. Thank you very much.